What's the best moveset in Pokémon? It almost seems impossible to answer this at first, as having over 1,000 different moves to choose from means you're likely to have several strategies pop up as top tier. You have Suicune's defining set of Calm Mind, Rest, Sleep Talk, and Surf, any number of movesets that Arceus has used in the Ubers tier, or even obnoxious prankster sets from Pokemon like Klefki and Sableye. The point is, there's a ton of movesets you can argue are top tier, even one of the best. However, I believe I've figured out the single best moveset in Pokemon, and today, I'm going to teach you all the knowledge I've gained. I know, very generous of me. And all I ask in return is that you drop a like down below and let me know in the comments what you think the best moveset in Pokemon is. I'm excited to see the variety of answers y'all come up with. You know, as long as it's not fear. Ugh. So off the bat, I need to address something. There is no best moveset. That's it, video's over. Seriously though, there's an argument to be made that any single moveset isn't the best for a number of reasons. Take Suicune's set I mentioned earlier. While it can take care of a ton of Pokemon on its own, it also loses to a lot of things one-on-one. That's because, for the most part, Pokemon is a balanced game. They've done a lot of work to make sure that one moveset won't just steamroll the entire game. As I kept looking at the more famous movesets over time, I quickly realized that there was one big factor that was going to make this question extremely difficult to answer, maybe even impossible. And that's status moves. Status moves are what allow Pokemon the flexibility to be more than just attacking machines, and as a result allow for so much variability that the question of the best moveset can't be definitively answered. Thus, my approach to this question is now, what's the best offensive moveset? Or, to look at it at a different angle, what 4 moves allow you to hit the most Pokemon for super effective damage? I felt this approach was the right decision, as the Pokemon that can hit the most other Pokemon is deserving of being called the best, right? As of Generation 9, there's 1,008 Pokemon, but with different forms, variants, and megas, the number is actually 1,190, so I'll be checking the moveset against that number to get the most thorough answer we can. Now, at this point you might be wondering, Shepsky, is there a moveset that hits everything for super effective damage? And the answer to that is no, definitely not. Let's take a look. The biggest problem with having a moveset that hits everything for super effective damage are typings that only have
1 to 2 weaknesses.
Between hitting normal and electric, you need fighting and ground, immediately taking up half of your move slots. Then factor in a type like fairy, where you'd need either poison or steel to hit it, and a type like water, where you'd need either grass or electric, and boom, you're out of slots, leaving several types unaccounted for. So with that covered, let's figure this out by eliminating some types that we don't need. First and foremost, normal. Pretty obvious, it literally doesn't do a single thing for us. Another type we can rule out is dragon, as it only hits itself for super effective damage, and we have a couple other types to hit it if we really need to. Surprisingly enough, we can also eliminate the dark type. If you didn't know, offensively, Dark and Ghost have the exact same type coverage. And since Ghost hits a couple extra Pokemon for super effective damage, we'll be favoring it over Dark if the need arises. Let's also cross Poison off the list. While it's one of only 2 types that can hit Fairy, it only hits Grass otherwise, which is the type with the most weaknesses. And as we established, we can't hit every type for super effective damage as is, so potentially losing out on hitting the Fairy type, the most uncommon type overall, isn't that big an issue. Alright, after eliminating those, we're left with, still a majority. To switch gears, let's choose some types for our moveset based on the types that hit the most others for super effective damage. There's one type that immediately jumps out to me, being ground. As I mentioned earlier, ground is essential in hitting the elusive electric typing, but its other claim to fame is being one of only 2 typings to hit 5 different types for super effective damage. And of these typings, Steel and Poison are 2 really good ones to hit. Steel is one of the best defensive typings in the game with only 3 weaknesses and tons of resistances, as long as you're not in the inverse type chart. And Poison is also great defensively, only being weak to Ground and Psychic. And Psychic isn't the most helpful type to us as the only other type it hits is Fighting. So Ground, in my opinion, is a definite keeper for the moveset. The next type we're going with is easily Ice. While awful defensively, Ice is a really great offensive type, hitting 4 types for super effective damage. Conveniently, those 4 types have no overlap with Ground, and actually helps to shore up 2 of the 3 typings Ground needed help with. And so just like that, with only 2 types chosen, we hit half of the individual types for super effective damage, while the other half is already hit for neutral. And for those wondering what the specific number is, we already hit 633 for super effective damage with just these 2 types. So with Ice and Ground, you can hit a majority of the Pokemon for super effective damage. Leave it to the trademark typing of Mamoswine to get shit done. Pause. At this point, you might be saying, I thought you were telling us a moveset, not just types. And to that I say, don't worry, I'll get there. It's a more dramatic reveal this way, I promise. While Ground and Ice is a perfect starting pair, there's one other pair that actually hits half the typings for super effective damage as well, and that's Ice and Fighting. Fighting is tied with Ground for hitting 5 types for super effective damage, one of which, as we mentioned earlier, is the hard to hit normal type. There is overlap between Fighting and Ground, as they both hit Rock and Steel types, but as a whole, I think it's beneficial to have them both on the moveset. Don't forget, my final calculations are based on the entire dex, not just individual typings. Not to mention, hitting Dark and Ice types for super effective damage helps us round out our list a ton. So Fighting is an easy keeper as well. And with that, we just need one more typing. The single types we still have to hit are Fighting, Bug, Fairy, Ghost, Psychic, and Water. And taking a look at what we have left, I felt the last slot was best saved for a Ghost move. While it only hits Psychic and Ghost for super effective damage, it's the best at fully rounding out our coverage, especially because having a Ghost move means we can hit Shedinja. And can you really call a moveset the best if you can't even hit Shedinja? Between the options we had, I do want to mention the Flying type, as it not only hits Shedinja, but it also knocks off 2 of our remaining typings as well. However, after doing the math, Ghost literally hits 1 more Pokemon in the Pokedex for super effective damage. I'm not kidding, we're splitting hairs here, that's how much I care about this. Anyways, that leaves us with Ground, Ice, Fighting, and Ghost for our moveset, allowing us to hit 910 Pokemon for super effective damage, and 280 for neutral damage. For the math lovers out there, that comes out to us hitting 76.5% of Pokemon for super effective damage. And the only individual types we hit neutrally are Bug, Fairy, Fighting, and Water. Alright, here's where I'm expecting a comment saying, Shepsky, why are you ignoring the Water type? It's the most common type in the game, so you're missing out on hitting a lot of Pokemon. If you use Electric over Ghost, you'll actually hit more Pokemon for super effective damage. And to that I say, wow, you really did your research, huh? I respect that. While yes, it's true that Electric over Ghost allows us to hit more Pokemon for super effective damage, I have one big trick up my sleeve. This entire time, I've been talking about our moveset in terms of typing alone, not specific moves. And while the specific move doesn't matter for Ground, Fighting, or even Ghost, it definitely does for the Ice type. May I present to you Freeze Dry. Introduced in Generation 6, Freeze Dry is a very special ice move that hits water types for super effective damage. See, I knew what I was doing. This one choice makes a world of difference, because not only do we hit water types for super effective damage, but we now also hit water flying types, water grass types, water dragon types, and the extremely elusive water ground types that are normally only weak to grass. This bumps up our moveset from being super effective against 910 to 1032. Percentage-wise, hitting 1032 means we can hit 86.7% of all Pokemon, variants and forms included, for super effective damage. Not perfect, but with a roster of over 1,000 Pokemon, that's pretty damn good. So this information is great and all, but it still leaves me with one question. Can any Pokemon actually pull off this moveset? It's all fun in games to be like, oh, here's the most moves that can hit other Pokemon, but if no Pokemon can actually do it, then, what's the point? The short answer to my question is yes. With the use of Hidden Power, there are plenty of Pokemon that can pull off this coverage. However, in my research, I found only one Pokemon that, in addition to not needing Hidden Power, doesn't even need to run a mixed moveset. Take a second and guess what Pokemon you think that is. And while you're guessing, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. This video required me to do a lot of math, and subscribing is the only way to ease my pain at this point. Plus, my dog gets some extra love for every sub. Did you do it? He'll know. So the one Pokemon that can pull off this moveset is none other than the legendary Pokemon, Kyurem. With a moveset of Freeze Dry, Earth Power, Focus Blast, and Shadow Ball, we have created what is, in my opinion, the best possible moveset. Honorable mention for this goes to the extremely forgettable Galarian Mr. Mime and its evolution Mr. Rhyme. They both get Freeze Dry, Focus Blast, and Shadow Ball, but they either need Hidden Power Ground or physical coverage in Stomping Tantrum to complete the moveset. But still, they're hitting over 1,000 Pokemon, so I don't think they're complaining. And there you go, that's the best possible moveset in Pokemon. Well, in my opinion, and for the most part. Once you open up the possibilities with status moves, all bets are off. Do you think there's a moveset that's better than the one I put together? If so, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see what y'all come up with. Like I said earlier, hopefully it's more than Endeavor and Quick Attack. Regardless, thanks again for watching, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I've got tons of new ideas for videos, and your support is greatly appreciated, by both me and the dog. Oh, and speaking of the dog, as thanks for making it to the end of the video, here's a picture of him. Talk to y'all soon.